Good morning, everybody. So I see a lot of people are just waiting for the start of this webinar. My name is Karl-Heinz Bosch. I'm from Forschungsgesellschaft Mobilität, Austrian Mobility Research in Graz in Austria. And you can also see Andras Ekes, who is from Budapest in Hungary, from Mobilissimus, and he will do the presentation today. He's the managing director of Mobilissimus, and he will tell a bit more about himself when he starts his presentation. So when you have any questions or so, you can ask for that in the chat. If you look at your screen on the bottom, you can open the chat and you can ask me questions and I will register them and then pass them on to Andras. Andras will make 2 parts, the presentation in 2 parts, each of them about 15 minutes. And yeah.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Karl-Heinz, for the introduction. My name is Andras Ekes, and on behalf of Mobilissimus, very warm welcome to this webinar about friends or enemies, so some practicalities in the SUMP communication. So I guess you know well that SUMP, so Sustainable Urban Mobility Planning, it's a new planning method about mobility planning, how to put the users, how to put the people in the middle of the planning. And I collected from 2 points of view the practicalities of the SUMP communication. The first part is about how to develop a SUMP and what are our experiences in communication. And the second one will be about the everyday communication of the public transport and mobility of our everyday. For a background about Mobilissimus, we are working in Budapest, both in national and international mobility planning and consultancy, maybe in the field of sustainable urban mobility. And we developed several SUMPs in Hungary, and we participate in international projects like Civitas Prosperity related to the SUMPs. So we developed several documents. You can see the Hungarian map and the main cities. We developed many, I think, very good documentation for improving the mobility situation of these cities. Also, we do a lot for awareness raising during Earth Day, Mobility Week, Car Free Day, to get closer the planning and the research to the everyday mobility practice and to the users. We developed several trainings, also close to this Civitas Prosperity project, like in Katowice in Poland, in Szeged in Hungary, and in Varna in Bulgaria. And what I would highlight, that we are the secretary of the Hungarian-speaking Civinet, so the Magyar Civinet, which is a very good institution, organization for getting closer all relevant stakeholders in the urban mobility and public transport. Let's turn to the communication, which is the main issue of today's webinar. So I'm sure that when you are working or using in the field of public transport and urban mobility, you use many of these forms of communication. When you are happy, you will smile to the driver, or when you are very unsatisfied, you will maybe write or compose a complaint letter, or you will check what's on the Facebook about recent changes, and so on. So there are many hundreds or thousands of forms of the communication when using all mobility fields. But is communication easy for us? I'm sure that no. Maybe we are on the same place and people do not understand despite that spoken language is the same. Or if we are at the same place, maybe we do not understand each other because of linguistic or other problems. Or if both we know the topic we are speaking about, but maybe we will not understand each other due to different communication skills or methods we are using at the given moment. So I think that we have to find adequate points of the communication in order to understand each other. So let's turn to the really first part of the presentation. It's about the communication of sustainable urban mobility planning, so the SUMP method. We developed SUMPs, I mentioned, and we tried to get really closer to the users. And one way, it's a very simple one, to develop a general questionnaire, a survey about the main mobility problems and main mobility ideas, suggestions from the users' parts. It was a basis of the planning. And when you change from one bus to another, or from a train to a bus, or also on vehicles, you could fill in this survey, not only on site, but also online. And we got, let's say, 2,000–3,000 of answers filled in questionnaires in a city of 50,000 inhabitants. So I guess it's a really good proportion, and we could get first round answers and we could tackle when starting the planning. We developed so-called thematic questionnaires. These thematic questionnaires were targeting those people who were primarily public transport users, primary cyclists or pedestrians, and primary car users. But I know that we are not only car users or public transport users. We are mobilists. We use several different modes and methods depending on our targets, on the time of the day, and so on. So everybody could fill in more questionnaires. And these were more targeted to understand the main problems, to understand what do they consider as successes, what are the everyday mobility habits, satisfaction or complaints, and when they don't use a given mode, what are the substitutions? If I'm a cyclist, what do I use during the winter time? My bicycle, public transport, or car? So when you understood the behaviors and the mobility habits, you could very well know what are the different patterns in choosing the mobility system in a given city. We collect several times problems on maps. It's a very good online solution. This screen is from the Sunrise project, it's Horizon 2020 project, and we are working in a neighborhood to understand the local citizens' problems and also ideas. They can put on the maps and describe briefly what are the problems and what would be the suggestions. And of course, we do it on site because not everybody has the internet access. And if we go to schools, go to some local institutions, we can get this information very well, and we put together with the online answers. I consider a very good solution. It was employed in Germany, in a small city of Fürstensfeldbruck, to visit the problematic areas with those people who are using every day these mobility modes. Here is for the bicycle. And they can understand well what are the problems, what are the good solutions, and they can find the solutions together and put into the planning process. We also work, as I told, we are involved a lot in awareness raising. We also work with different generations and different stakeholder groups when developing sustainable urban mobility plans. We try to invite young generations because I'm convinced that it's very important to understand how the next generations are working, what are their needs, what are their ideas and dreams, and working together with school children, with children from kindergartens, give very, very good results, and we can understand how do they work, how do they imagine the city they would like to live in, let's say in 15 or 20 years. Also, we work together with elderly people, with retreated people, because they have totally different needs and mobility habits, and we have to well understand their ideas, needs, and their visions on the city. So SUMP, it's not a general document, and SUMP must be very, very sensitive to all different generations and stakeholder groups, different needs. When we have, during the planning process, some thematic project groups, measures, a group of measures, we can invite the people to put some points to their most preferred measures. Let's say 3 or 5 most important measures for them. and we can understand the mechanism, can understand what are the most important ones from the point of view of the local users. One other communication solution, it's about an idea which we developed in Mobilissimus last year. We organized the summer university. We've been a mediator, a communication channel between the city leadership and the planning people and university students. We invited for a week around 20 people coming from totally different universities, having different formation, engineers, economists, landscape architects, and so on. And they had to solve, or they had to plan for a given mobility problem in the city of Székesfehérvár in Hungary. It's a 100,000 inhabitant city in Hungary. And what they prepared by the end of this summer university was a very, very good solution how to deal with the mobility issues of a future campus area of the city of Székesfehérvár. So they put very fresh and new ideas, and they could very well communicate on their ideas to the city leadership. And when the planning will go forward, these ideas will be put into the planning documentation. What can we do when we have the measures, we have the ideas? How can we communicate with the citizens? And a very good example is from Ljubljana in Slovenia, to put together the good ideas and to make tests, not only in a visual way, so you can see how it was before and how it will be after the planning or implementation, but to give different solutions during some real tests. So let's say 4 weeks with more trees, more benches, more pavements in a very temporary way. After, the city will rearrange the public space with less lanes, more bicycle surfaces, and so on. And when people can vote after half a year or 1 year, what was the best and what were the worst solution and how that could be improved, a new disposition will be born for the future planning. So before being finalized with a planning idea, you can avoid very well mistakes, and you can communicate with the citizens to find under a community planning process the best solution. So another communication story I would like to show from the example of city of Eger, 55,000 inhabitant city in Hungary. And I would like to show you a short video about the solution how to modify the everyday mobility habits through the children, mobility habits of the parents through the children.
Indulhatunk, apa!
Ez az, amit átalakítottam.
Egyenesen menj, apa! Dugó van előtted!
Gyerekek, menjünk már!
Ez lesz a te most útmutatón, menj be vele dolgozni!
Ezzel?
Felvétel elindult.
Indulhatunk, apa! Mondjuk jobb lenne busszal vagy bicajjal menni, nem lenne akkora dugó. Fordulj jobbra, így csinálják a bicajosok is. Gáz-fék, gáz-fék! Jobbra menj, ha bicajoznál, sportolnál.
De nem tudok bemenni, mert le van zárva.
Újra tervezem az utat, apa. Nem mész inkább busszal?
Jobb lenne.
Budalassú vagy, apa. Iskolába elfoglalsz majd egy csomó helyet. Legközelebb használd a buszt, jó?
Jó. Fordulj jobbra, a busz is így csinálná.
Nem milyen volt.
Szuper. Nem ismertem megszólalni, csak hallgattam, hogy mit mondotok. Ügyesek voltatok.
Tonka és Samu mindent kiszámolt. Egerben egy csuklós buszon átlagosan 35-en utaznak. Ha ők is mind autóval mennének, 25 autóval lenne több az úton. Ennyi hely elég lenne 15 busznak, vagy több mint 150 biciklisnek. Ha te is ezeket használnád, több lenne a szabad tér és tisztább a levegő. Éljen a busz és a bicaj! Nézd meg Viola és Andris üzenetét is.
I'm very curious about your experiences. Have you ever been in contact with sustainable urban mobility planning? If so, what kind of communication methods did you find as the best one? And we have a poll about this. I'm not sure you've heard the latest words. One is about videos, so I think it's a very good method to work together with children to convince the mobility habits of their parents, of their teachers, and these young people, young children became absolutely famous in the city of Eger. So let's turn to our second poll. It's about the communication forms you prefer when expressing your opinion related to mobility issues.
This is the result of the first question. So the online survey won.
We don't see.
Sorry. Okay.
Also the online. Yeah, it's
yeah.
I would be very happy if you could contribute about their opinion. So why exactly the online survey is the most important for you when you are asked about the mobility situation? So
yes, please, if you have any comments, then please put them in the chat and we will have a look at it. Shall we start with the next question or?
No, I would be happy to have some questions and answers for this one. Why exactly the online survey is favorable, or it can be also a question about the other modes. So what are the reasons to prefer other modes of expressing the opinion on mobility issues?
So I see a lot of comments now. So that they say that online activities are pretty easy to perform, and it's easier to distribute and to access. These are reasons given by Monica and by Baiba.
Okay. It can be really easier in case you have the access for online surfaces.
Yeah.
Do we have other comments or questions related to this topic?
No, I don't see any comments. I see that the problem mapping online. So when you have probably that's when you have an app or so, then that's also popular, let's say, but not a lot less than the online survey.
Yeah, but we can conclude that online ways are most popular among our audience. But maybe it's not too surprising because what we do actually, it's an online session, so it's a web. Yeah. Those people who are voting are used to be close to the online solutions. What we experience from several cities that when we have polls or surveys on the level of different mobility services, let's say the public transport, we have totally different solutions for the same questions from the online and on-site surveys. And somehow the reason is, at least in Hungary, the reason is that those people who are using the public transport services and are asked on a bus stop, they are everyday users and they have to accept what the service level is. So sometimes they are hostages if the service level is very low, or basic social service in a smaller city, or they are very satisfied. Those people who answer online do not use many times the public transport services, and they underestimate the level. So it can bring very interesting results for the same question from a totally different point of view. And we experience it in all cities we are looking in.
Yeah, I have one more comment from the chat. That's that it's maybe better to combine these measures because you get richer data. Yeah, get more information as if you only use online.
Yes, is it for the survey or for the slides and different solutions I showed? I mean, this comment.
This is for the communication method. Yeah.
Yeah. What I showed, it's really a multitude of different solutions for asking people, and we do it in a mixture. So I showed you some mosaics, and we try to put them together and to have a real picture composed from the mosaics by the end of the planning. But I totally agree, yeah.
I have a question that's about you know, the size of the city. So if you have a very small city, you have a lot, you can do a lot. But if the city gets bigger, then it gets more difficult to make all these meetings. And so, what do you say about that?
Yeah, it's partly a question of city size. What we experienced is that to have city quarter or city district based meetings and also thematic meetings. So if I speak about on-site solutions, so you can work a lot together with the people coming from a given neighborhood. I showed you the problem mapping for a neighborhood in part of Budapest, in the quarter of Zugló. So you can go very close to the local citizens, to the local users. It can be also a solution if you consider the online ways. So you can have very well targeted online solutions during a public discussion, and you can once invite, let's say, the bus drivers, because they know very well the city or the quarters specialties, what are the mobility habits. I think many planners do not think about the drivers, the public transport vehicle drivers, but they are very important participants of the planning. But it can be for all specialized stakeholder group the same solution. But I don't consider that if a city size is big, the planning would be much more difficult. You have to use the adequate communication channels.
Okay, one other question is, what do you do about representativity? So you get certain people answer and certain people come to meetings and the others you don't reach. What do you do about that?
Yeah, absolutely right. What I showed, these are not really about the representativity. These are to understand the main problems and to see the weight of different problems among those people who are interviewed or asked. As for the representativity, I didn't show, but we used to do household surveys. Household survey is representative for the genders, for the ages, for the quarters or smaller neighborhoods. And it can be very well used for understanding the city level problems. Above a certain city size, we develop transport models to understand the behavior and to understand what will be changed when you are changing the mobility structure of the city through different measures and packages of measures. So it can be representative, but the household survey cannot give the really sensitive answers for the mobility patterns. So that's why we use both solutions.
Okay, at the moment I don't have any more questions. Maybe you want to proceed? Or...
Yes, I think we should move to the second part of the presentation. It will be about the continuous communication methods in public transport. There are many similar issues connected to the first part of the presentation, but it will be more focused. And I'm sure that all of you, when you arrive to a given city or to a given holiday site, you will have to understand how the public transport is organized, what are the communication channels to tourists, to citizens, how to get from point A to B. These are all communication solutions from user to operator or from operator to user. Normally, what we use, these are the communication channels from operator or from authority to the user. You see the map, you see the timetable, you see the web page or a Facebook site of the operator from the authority. And as user, you will use these channels and you will understand what line to be taken and how to get from point A to point B. From user to operator, you can have many channels how to deal with the operator. If you are absolutely disappointed, you can write a letter of complaint and you can send it to the operator or to the authority. So there might be many communication channels, both on virtual side and the physical side. I will give you a wide range of these solutions. Let's start with the static or so-called online static information. These are maps, timetables, or the information of the fares. You can get very good visual, user-friendly brochures when you arrive to a city and want to understand the public transport organization. And what I mentioned before, it's a combination of touristic and transport product or cultural and transport product, which can get closer users to other sectors of the urban life and urban living. So let's start with the lines. When you arrive to a given city, you will have to be clear how to get from point A to point B. On this slide, you can see a confusion of lines. It's for those people who are living in that city, Székesfehérvár in Hungary, it's even not clear and even too complex because there are only black lines with some numbers without really showing the stops, the lines, and no real information. So I'm sure that it's not for really not for the users. And the other example is from Munich. When you arrive, you can get to a customer service center and you can take a map for free and you can put in your pocket and you will understand the main information both for the lines, the inner city, and for the ticketing and most important information. And you can have the same solutions in many hundreds of European or cities in worldwide, knowing how the organization of the lines is done with knowing all lines, all stops, connections, most touristic zones, and there are very good solutions. What I would like to highlight here, it's about the traffic or public transport of a neighborhood. It's not obvious, you cannot find it in all cities, but it's very important to do smaller scale maps to understand the neighborhood's public transport with all stops, all bus lines, all tram lines, giving very adequate information. You can have similar solutions. It's again in Salzburg about the different lines, both for railways, urban transport, and regional transport on the same map structure. What we did, I mentioned that we are working a lot with sustainable urban mobility planning, and in the city of Zalaegerszeg, we developed not only the SUMP, but a completely new public transport network, giving something clear, visual, and easy to understand for the users. And I will show how it was before. And I think that these kind of maps are absolutely good for people, for everyday users and for occasional users. I will say this other example a bit later. Coming from the maps to the stops and timetables, it's again something which we could consider very partial if we are everyday users and we know how to get to a given point. But when we are foreign people, when we are not everyday users, we can have to understand the functioning and working of the public transport system. It's from Bucharest. You have some stops without any timetables, any information on the line of the lines, first departure, last departure, frequencies. You can have only a very basic data about the lines that stop at the given stop. Another information panel from a Bulgarian railway station. If I have to understand when my train will arrive, and I'm working with public transport a lot, I have to spend at least 5 to 10 minutes to really understand the order, the colors, the information. It's not about because it's in Cyrillic, because it's not a user-friendly and consumable information complex. And with the same energy, a good solution could have been also developed. And yes, here is the counterexample for the city of Zalaegerszeg, what I showed as we developed the SUMP and the new bus network. This is how it is actually. For a city line, for an urban line, you have 4 to 5 footnotes and different signs to understand what will be the exact departure time and the exact itinerary of your bus. If an operator considers that all users are genius, it's okay, but it's not the case. So I have to see 2 or 3 minutes, this one, to understand the exact departures. So it's not for real users. A bit similar but easier from the city of Székesfehérvár, when you have to add a given time from the terminus, because these departure times are from the terminus, but you are not at the terminus. You have to add some minutes depending on the traffic. It would be nothing to improve them, and the city improved like that. And people complain a lot that it's not easy for them. This is the new one, showing the exact departure times from the stops, but people would like to get back the old one because they used to add the minutes needed from the terminus to the given station they are, or stop they are waiting the bus. And what would be the clear one? It's from Switzerland, but could be from many parts of Europe. It's a very clear one, and you will understand the exact departure. So I consider these topics as very important ones when an operator or an authority communicates with their users. If we consider our users serious, if we want to sell them a good service because they pay for this service, they pay a lot for this service, we have to accomplish absolutely their needs, and we have to improve always the solutions. And in many cities in Europe, we don't have almost no information or a very bad level of information like that. Do you have any information about this line 31? I don't think so. You can have only something, a handmade text on a board, which is partly covered by a published by an advertisement. It's not really for informing. And how it could be. It's from Germany, from Karlsruhe. I like very much this picture because you can collect here the user-friendly good technologies, how an operator could communicate with you as a user, also in real time. If there are delays, if there are modifications, both on vehicles, inside and outside, and on the stops, you can give all information for them. There are some situations when there are changes on the network, temporary or long-term ones. If you get an A4 paper above all stops, you can not really see that there are changes, and it's only in one language. I'm sure that all this information must be at least bilingual, the local language and English one, in order to give information for those people who are not used to live in the given city. And how to do it well, it's from Brno, Czech Republic. You see that something, it's not white, it's yellow. And this yellow shows that it's a temporary change, and you will get closer even if you are a local citizen or a tourist, and you want to understand, and it's bilingual, what are the changes and how you can adapt to these changes. Some good solutions, these are from Budapest, to show in an underpass what are the lines you can take using the given exit. And on the right side, you can see some information put on the floor about the underground replacement. It's a very visual and very basic communication, but very useful, and it's visual because you are looking at the wall when going in an underground, or you will see it because it's a huge advertisement on the changes. I like this communication form very much because you will observe it even if you don't want to see it. A marketing campaign from London. It's colorful. You will see it. It's also on the underground stations, and you can download it from the web page about some off-peak fare reductions. So it's a good way how to communicate with the citizens and with the tourists. I like very much this advertisement. Let's turn to the dynamic elements. So you have a multitude of dynamic solutions when you are a passenger, more and more ones. So a classic dynamic one, it's the info center or info point, where you can be in communication with the operator or with the authority. You can get information, you can complain if you want, you can organize your mobility or travel details without any inconvenience. A good solution when you want to get closer to the company, or even more when the company wants to get closer to the users. This is from France. You could enter to the main building of the public transport company in Brest, and you could meet the CEO of the company. So it's a very close connection built by the company to make the company's services more popular and better known by the users. A different connection, different communication channel, it's about the interchanges. When you are on a bus, on a train, on a tram, you can see the connections many times with real-time information. If you speak about real-time, you can plan the journeys. More and more cities use this solution to show the options about the journey, to show what vehicle, what line you have to take, how many time do you need for the given travel. And you can add some visual panels to ease the everyday mobility flow of the people. What I like very much, when outer stakeholders, NGOs would like to train, would like to teach the official operators. It's about a messenger bot. An NGO in Hungary developed a messenger bot. If there is climatic problem in a tramway or in a bus, you could send a very short message to this messenger bot, and the bot will ask you some basic information, the time, the line number, the number of the vehicle, and so on. And this message will be automatically sent to the operator. So as a user, you don't have to write an official letter. You don't have to compose and to find where this information panel is maybe hidden on the web page, or to write an official letter. within 5 seconds, you can send a complaint about different topics. Here it's about the climate.
Sorry, Andras, I have a question about that. So how do you get this app? How do you get to the? How do you?
You mean the messenger bot?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, it's based in Facebook Messenger. Mm-hmm. So you have to compose a message to a given messenger address, and this bot will ask you some questions. And if you answer them, like the number of the line, the problem, you could choose among different problems. When you finish it, it will be sent automatically to the company. So.
Okay, but you access it via Facebook?
Yes.
Okay.
It's an example again from London, but I like very much because it's clear, it's very informative, both on the actual traffic situation and the most important topic, how to pay, what are the fees, how to use given services, and what would be the major works and events. So on one page, you can click on the most important mobility points of the city or the public transport service, and it's working very well, despite that in London there are many perturbations and problems with the everyday urban traffic, but at least you can get a very, very good and easy access to the information. And if you go forward, there is a new solution. I don't know whether you are using it or not. It's the mobility as a service, so it's called MAS. It's not only a journey planning. This example is from Vienna, but it can be available from many, many cities in Europe and more cities in Europe. That you can not only plan a journey, you can combine, you can mix the different modes. So you can combine a journey with a car sharing car, with a public transport vehicle, bike sharing or parking. You can compose your itinerary, your journey from different operators, different products, private ones and public ones. And if you put together, this is the first phase, you will get a planned journey. So it can be an integrated journey planner. And the second level is the ticketing. Within 5 seconds, you can buy the ticket for a long trip, and it will be feasible in a couple of months, I guess. And in Switzerland, it's working very well for long journeys. So you are not forced to communicate with your only operator, a train operator, a bus operator, a local bus operator, and so on, and to buy different tickets. With this integrated system, you can plan and pay for the journey, for the complete journey from point A to point B. So I will show you a very brief story by the end of the presentation. It's the city of VESZPRÉM, which is a 60,000 inhabitants city in the Transdanubian, Western Transdanubian region in Hungary. And there was an operator for the local buses, the same operator as for the regional buses. It's a national operator with very, very old buses, the low level of communication with the passengers, and there were many technical and other problems. The people were more and more insatisfied. It means that more and more people left the public transport services. And both the city leadership and some experts recognized that this situation must be changed because we will lose our passengers, our paying passengers, and they will choose the car. It will increase the car percentage in the modal share and will have many negative impacts. What happened? The city wanted to procure a new operator and build up a completely new local bus company. It's an absolutely recent story. It was changed by the 1st of January this year. And there is a city-owned company, and the city-owned company had only 6 months to prepare everything, the fleet, the passenger information system, the traffic control, to have drivers, technology, depot, and so on. And in a hurry of communication and, of course, hurry of all technical details, they could start the new service by the 1st of January. And why I'm showing this example, that if you use some very good also communication impact, that you can have the same color for all buses. You remember this was before. And you have all buses like milk cows, and you can have similar color or same color buses. You have a good passenger information system. You have a journey planner. You have a very good communication tool from the operator to the driver and to the users with new technologies. You can use, you can bring new passengers, and you can create within a couple of months a new service level. I'm sure that this situation, it's not a question in many Western Europeans or also Central European cities and countries, but such a long tradition with the national operator must be changing to the new operator. It's a very, very challenging period, and I wanted to focus on this communication aspect, but we are very happy to show that this showcase is livable and feasible, and it's partly a learning by doing process, but I think that successes will be within a couple of months, and users will be more and more satisfied, and they will give a feedback from user to operator also, not only complaints. So this was the story, and one element by the very end, that the Prosperity Project developed several innovation briefs. You can see the topics, what were the latest innovation briefs about some new technological or mobility solutions, like the dockless bike sharing or crowdfunding of different solutions. And what we developed from the part of Mobilissimus last time, it's about inexpensive but very efficient measures for improving the public transport level. This is to be downloaded also from the address you can see at the top of the page from the sumpnetwork.eu. So from our part, this was my presentation, and thank you very much for your attention. And if you have some questions, like for the first part of the session, I would be happy to share my opinion with you.
Okay, thank you very much for these nice presentations and lots of examples. If there are any questions, please put them in the chat. I have one question now for you. How do you, when you work with a city like you did for 4 cities in Hungary, how do you approach to analyze the information situation? Yes, often it's very bad. How do you have any system there, or what? How do you do that?
The analysis, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are the flaws? Yeah.
Okay. So we collect many kind of information, both statics ones, so all the strategies, actual strategies. We do these surveys, and we will have the results. We will conclude to the main conclusions about the situation, and we will discuss many stakeholder groups. And what I would highlight is to understand what is the idea and the approach of the decision makers. Mention it because it's a bit a topic farther from only from the communication, but it's very interesting to understand what the decision makers think about their cities. And in many times we show the conclusions, the main achievements of the analysis, and they agree that yes, I know that this is the situation. In some cases, no, it can't be true. I think that the situation is much better. But we can show the different data and to show that, but still, this is the situation. But we have the chance not to work together and to find solutions together. In a better case, they are very cooperative and we can work together. In other case, okay, you are the planner, please plan us how our city will be in 5, 10, or 15 years. Consider the technical part. We use some Excel models. We are working with a strict evaluation system, how to work with the future measures and projects from different point of view, like the impacts for the mobility, impacts for the economy, health, environment, and so on.
Okay. I have one other question. That's, you know, these days, a lot of information you get from Google Maps, right? You just type in and say, we can go with public transport. What do you advise cities what to do about this? Should they share their data or not? Or are you neutral about that?
Oh, I'm not neutral about that. We can get good information both from Google and also from OpenStreetMap. And just thinking about the public transport and Google Maps, you know, maybe there are so-called GTFS data. So those data that are available in Google format about the timetables and the journeys of different public transport vehicles. Google wants to use this data coming from the city, coming from the operator or from the authority. And in a very short time, you will be able to plan your journeys under Google. It's a very hard competition now because there are totally different solutions. And there are some companies who are not happy to share their data with Google. I know the Hungarian national bus operator is not happy to give the GTFS data for the users and for developers, application developers. But I'm convinced that there are many developers who produce much better journey planners and with a much better user experience than a national-wide operator. So I would open this data, but to keep the competition and not to prioritize Google to other ones.
Okay. Well, I don't see any questions in the chat. I see a thank you for the professional presentation. And well, in principle, I would end with that. The time is up. We're already 5 minutes over time. So thank you all the people who are joined this webinar. And you will get a link to the video and also to the presentation. And if you have any questions, just ask them. On the 7th of February, we already have the next webinar, which is about measure selection. So, well, thank you to you, Andras, and thanks to everybody. I will end.
Thanks to the audience, and thanks, Karl-Heinz.
Okay, you're welcome.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.